Hello, my loves. Welcome back to our podcast. We are the Babbling Sisters. I'm Nellie.
And I'm Steph.
And Mr. Bush is back again. Late, but back again.
Wow.
Say hi. Say hi. It is. Why do you sound very low?
Yeah, you sound far away.
Here we go. Come up in here late, come up in here with problems. Oh, don't worry. We'll wait again. In the meantime, while Mr. Bush gets it together, today we're going to talk about boundaries that I am pushing currently.
Yeah, you are.
in this podcast. Boundaries.
Boundaries are made to be enforced, not broken, Nellie.
I mean, don't they say that about rules and laws too? And then everyone says, "Oh, rules are meant to be broken."
Are they though?
They're not. They're not. But I'm a bratty little kitten, and I harness it. So I definitely press the limits on some boundaries, like healthy, hard boundaries. I don't press those limits, but like how far I can go in other boundaries. I be leaning my full weight. I'm a big bitch. I be leaning on them boundaries to see what happens. He's still having issues. You see, we could have this whole podcast and this man's still gonna have these issues.
He's letting you know his boundaries right now. Forcing him into this to talk about boundaries, and he's like, yep. F this bullshit. I don't know why. No, ignore me. I silenced myself for the F. And then, yeah.
Oh my god. Now look at him. He fucking up the flow. Wait, what is she doing over here?
There we go.
I'm switching because my computer camera is cheeks. So I'm switching cameras.
Well, you sound great, by the way. We can hear you loud and clear. Lovely. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Bush.
Why are you playing with
me? Say
hello.
There are some people that love seeing your face up here. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Why say it like that? Hello, everybody. Sex talk show? Did you enter? Good Lord, that's not what we're talking about today, sir. It's boundaries. Anyway, on to the topic at hand, guys. What in the hell, sir?
He's got it. He switched to his good camera. He is camera ready now.
Right, I had to switch to the good camera. That other camera had me blurry. I need to be in focus. I need people to see the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Bush. You know you love me.
Yep. Yeah, my best friend. All right. So, you guys know I'm having meltdowns. I felt a little tickle on my toe and immediately thought, Spidey.
Spider.
I'm still not over it. I'm not over it. Spidey tried to kill me, attack me, guys. I'm sorry. I had a moment and I was like, I could live through this, and it just kept going, and I couldn't. Fine. Ooh, okay.
It was funny though, because you should have seen her afterwards. She was doing the whole smoking thing.
I know. She was twitching. And she was like looking all around her like this. It was funny.
That's not what this podcast is about.
All right, it's about boundaries. Let's get back on track.
That spider crossed the boundary, didn't it? Though.
Listen, I have very hard boundaries when it comes to the Spideys. Okay, them bitches ain't allowed near me. I don't even want to see them. I know that they exist, and I'm sure they're scurrying around, but I just don't come in my vision or on my body. Do you elsewhere? Don't come over here.
Okay.
Feel the same way about that mouse that was here the other night. I had to get rid of him. He had a hard boundary and he crossed my house, so he got caught in that trap. So, I mean, I wasn't freaking out afterwards like some people. But boundaries, boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Get to the subject.
Well, guys, clearly we got to reset some boundaries in this friendship here. You know?
Do we really,
I
though?
mean, it's been too long. I mean, I feel like after a certain amount of time, there's really like no. I mean, there's boundaries, but it's like ebb and flow. You know?
Yeah.
It's just not talked about. You know what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I feel like with my older relationships, there's not really any boundary setting because we never really did it. So we kind of just like grew up and knew each other, you know?
Right.
I feel like the more you grow, like the more you grow with a person, like those boundaries are either really loosely coupled or I wouldn't want to say non-existent, but you just know what not to cross. You know what
Yeah.
conversations you can or can't have.
Yeah, they're solidified in time because you know the person so well that you know what not to do, what to do. You know?
Mm-hmm.
However, setting boundaries with people that don't have them, that cross our personal boundaries, is a different story. So one thing I do want to ask is what you guys' take on your whole personal boundary thing, because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about boundaries, and then when someone crosses this boundary that they don't even know exists, the person flips out and shuts down, kicks the person out without even having a conversation. It's just like, you're done, you crossed that line, you crossed the boundary, but it's like they didn't even know it was a boundary. So what is your take on that type of situation? Like, do you feel like, obviously depending on what it is,
Right.
do you feel like it deserves a conversation, whether you're continuing on with the friendship or relationship, or if you're going to work through it or end it? Like, do you feel that it still deserves a conversation? Like, hey, we didn't talk about it, but this was my boundary. You crossed over it by doing A, B, and C. Do you feel like that deserves a conversation? Like that person deserves to know? Or do you just...
Well, it depends on. There's so many factors for me. Like, how long have we been friends? What was it? Like, was it something like totally egregious, or was it just like something that is my own thing? You know what I mean?
It's not anything that's gonna like physically harm you. Let's play it out like this, because I'm talking about like, let me not call some people's boundaries stupid because that's their boundaries, but
Yeah, no, we're not
I'm
gonna do
saying
that.
like surface
Okay.
level basic bitch shit.
Well, yeah, then usually I would
Boundaries.
have a conversation.
I know so many people who are just like, well, these are my boundaries, and they overstepped it. I'm like, they didn't know it existed. So how can you fault the person who doesn't know if you're not clearly defining your boundaries? How can you fault a person who oversteps the boundaries because they don't know what your boundaries are?
That's what my therapist calls a rigid boundary. And that's where essentially you trust nobody, you give nobody any space to make any mistakes, you don't give them a chance to even even if you acknowledge that they made that mistake, you don't give them the air, so to speak, to correct their actions. And so that's just as bad as having no boundaries in and of itself. Um, so with me, I would have a conversation. Obviously, it depends on the level of that line steppage. You know, sometimes people just say things or do things, and they don't know that they've crossed the boundary, or they
Right.
don't know that they rubbed you the wrong way. So I feel like as a uh, at least what I would consider a mature, emotionally intelligent individual, you would have that conversation. You would step to the side and be like, "Hey, I don't appreciate that. You kind of said some things, or you moved in a certain way that didn't G with me." Um, and if it's a friendship that's worth, seeing where it can go, or a relationship even to seeing where it can go, then that boundary will be respected. I've come across situations where somebody will be like, "Oh man, you tripping, you bugging, it's not that deep," and it could be deep to me. It's deep to
Right.
me, and so, or else I wouldn't bring it up with you.
Gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
That's
whole other
straight
thing.
gaslighting somebody. Don't ever try to tell someone how someone's reaction or emotions are less than, because you don't know why they're reacting that way. And their feelings are their feelings. Grow the fuck up. That's a whole nother podcast. But let me ask you a question. Pre-therapy, Mr. Bush, would you handle that the same way? Or is this something you have learned and picked up as you've grown and been in therapy?
Um, I think I would have handled it the same way before pre-therapy, uh, depending on the individual. Like if it's a newer friendship, I like to give the benefit of the doubt more often than not. But there are some people who where I know that this is just their who they are as a person, who they are as an individual, and you can just pick up that vibe. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that they're just not that person that that is gonna back off, or it's that situation where you give them an inch and they're gonna take a mile. So
Mm.
at that point, you gotta cut your losses and keep an individual like that at arm's length. Because if you give them any kind of space, any kind of area to move like that against you again, it's kind of like that Chappelle show skit where uh, who was it? Rick James was a habitual line stepper, so he had to get kicked in the chest. I mean, I don't suggest kicking people in the chest, but at the
No.
same time, if if you
Mental,
continuously give
mental.
people that area to continually step across that line, then yeah, you got to kick them out of your life, and that's just the way it
But
is.
that's on you though. That's not on them, because if you're not addressing it and you're not telling them, "Hey, you're stepping over this line. This is a boundary of mine." That's on you. That's not on them, because they're just doing what they're doing and they're not knowing how it's affecting you. So it's up to you as the
I would,
boundary
yeah,
holder to let them know. Now I'm speaking from experience, because I have let many of people slide on boundaries that have made me very uncomfortable, because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable, because I didn't want the confrontation, because I didn't want the drama, because I didn't want the headache. And I'm just like, all right, cool. You just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it until I boil and I snap. Now the old me used to snap very easily. Y'all know. Y'all know. And I never gave people the benefit of the doubt. It was a, it's over. I'm done. Flip the fuck out. And they're like, yo, what the hell? What's happening? I lose my shit and I'm coming to hurt your feelings, because that was my defense mechanism. I didn't know any better. I didn't know,
Right.
hey, you got to communicate these things. It's just like, you should know. You stupid. Now, me, I'm like, no, they didn't know. They didn't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
and see, I was on the complete opposite of that spectrum. It's like I will continually give somebody the benefit of the doubt of where I would think, no, they didn't mean it. No, they didn't. This isn't something I have to address. And it continuously becomes that, once again, you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile, and you allow that person that space to treat you how they're gonna treat you, and you have to set those boundaries early, because if you don't, it's one of those things that it definitely will come back to bite you. Uh, Definitely hard in the long run, because you've already trained them how they can treat you, or how they're allowed to treat you. And you've given them that space, you've given them that area to be like, yeah, you can treat me like that. I'm cool with that. And the whole time you could be like, I don't really like that, but at the same time, I'm not trying to cause confrontation. I'm not trying to rock the
You know,
boat.
I did
I'm
that in
trying
my
to be.
marriage.
I think we've all, at some point in time, have just let people
Absolutely.
continuously slide on things that we probably should have, for lack of a better term, knocked the teeth down their throat about.
Here. Yep. I really feel like I used to a lot, and there are even sometimes where I blur the line a little bit for certain people. And certain people are allowed to navigate over some lines a little bit differently and wobbly than others, and it doesn't bother me as much. Um, but I think it kind of gives a bad view to others looking in, right? If you're saying this
Yeah.
is my boundary, but then you got these people and they're like,
Crossing them.
well,
Yeah.
so it's like I need to remind myself, like, not everyone deserves that grace, and your boundaries are your boundaries for a reason. And don't try to be nice, because we all know I'm the loving mother, and I'm just like, oh, all right, you know what, you was having a bad day, but nah, bitch, my boundaries are my boundaries. Stay the fuck over there, stop playing with me, because sometimes I'll be getting real angry, you know.
Yep.
Not at
So
all. I've never seen you angry. You're just sweet as peach pie.
I'm so loving and sweet and calm, and like, I don't know why people think I'm intimidating, but I mean, that's a whole nother podcast. um so setting boundaries, I still struggle. I feel like, because that's a communication thing, right? And that's
Yep.
a vulnerability for me. As weird as it sounds, because it's also a very protective thing, right? And it's something that needs to be done and something that needs to be talked about. But I kind of give a little flow to things to see how the person is moving and acting. And then I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, no, I'm not liking this at all. But by then they're like, why didn't you just tell me? And I'm like, well, see, the thing about me. But before, I would never set boundaries. And, when we talk about setting boundaries, it's as simple as saying, like, hey, you did this and I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. That's a boundary. People think that it has to be like this org chart of don't do this and don't do that and don't
Right.
it.
Mhm.
Come on. Overcomplicating things for no reason. So, Steph,
Yep.
put your ass on the spot.
Cool.
Um, how hard was it for you to transition into setting healthy boundaries?
Oh, it's still hard for me. I don't communicate well. Um, and yeah, shocker to anyone that knows me. I don't know. I still have a hard time with it, especially with certain people. Like, there's some people that I have an extreme hard time with, and then there are other people where it's just like, no, dude, you can't do that. And if they do it again, then they're out.
Why do you feel that it's hard with certain people?
It depends on who it is. There's a few people that I have a hard time with. I don't know. I don't know.
Anyone would like to talk about specifically?
No.
Damn it. I'm just really curious as to how other people's minds work when it comes to the setting boundary part, because it is, for me, it's the most difficult part. And don't worry, Mr. Bush, we get into you and your boundary setting. So it's the most difficult part, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then keeping it is easier than setting it.
Right.
But you gotta stay on it, because all of that hard work and shit that you went through to get to that point to be able to set that boundary, remember that when you're ready to be like, oh, blur the line a little bit. You want to go through that shit again? I think not.
See, I have a hard time communicating what I want or need. So for me, it just makes it difficult. And then I don't like confrontation either. So I feel like it gives me anxiety and full on sweats at the thought of like telling someone, and then maybe like a fight's gonna happen because of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard.
Think that it's a fight that's going to happen, or do you think that you're also afraid that they're not going to care enough about you to respect that boundary?
It's probably a combination of both. But for me, it's weird. So there are very few people that would bother me if they left my circle. Like, so, yeah, you're one of them. But like, but with you, it's different. We grew up with each other, and you pretty much know what my boundaries are. And if I have a problem with you, I'll just tell you.
Bitch, get out my face.
Whereas with like other people that I've even known for a long time, like I have a hard time, and it's not necessarily because I'm afraid that they're going to with you or with like Leo, like really close people. I'm afraid that you're gonna be like, yep, no, that's it. Like that boundary's too much, and I'm out. Like, or whatever. With other people, it's fine if they make that choice because that's their choice. Like I can't force people to be in my life. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'm rambling.
Right, but no, I love when you ramble. It's just to hear you say me and the other one, Leo, yeah, second best to me. You're afraid that we're gonna be like, no, I don't like these boundaries. Fuck you. And, like, not.
I have severe abandonment issues. I know, but I have severe abandonment issues when it comes to the people that I've gotten like the closest to me. I know.
But it's your sister and your best friend, and then your husband, him. So I love him, guys. I give him a hard time. Like, he's second best when it comes to me. Can't talk me. I'm gonna fuck. Don't care. Anyway, he knows this. He knows. Love you, Leo. Anyway, so to hear you say that, to set a boundary, even though like we clearly know your boundaries, we know you very well.
Right.
Even though I push boundaries, I'm your baby sister, I'm supposed to. But to hear you say, out of the strongest relationships you have, that's the hardest.
Yep.
To set boundaries in. It honestly, like I'm shocked. I'm not gonna lie. I'm confuzzled.
I can't explain it.
My eyebrows are doing weird things because I'm like, wait, hold on. And I had to think. I'm like, did I hear anything? Was she meaning to go different? No, you meant what you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's wow, that's interesting. Okay.
It's my abandonment shit.
No, I get it. I have abandonment issues. I do. But for me, it's more so towards the people who haven't been there so long because I'm used to them flowing in and flowing out. So it's harder to be like, rigid boundaries. Hey, I may act a little crazy sometimes. Know my boundaries to the newer people as they're getting to know me, because you really have to get to know me on a soul level to understand all of my moving parts, because believe me, honey, there's too many. So you're the other way around, and that's just I shouldn't be surprised because it's you,
right?
You do things ass backwards. but
for me though, like people were in and out of our lives all the time, and I never really made connections, you know what I mean? Like I didn't do that. It was only very, very few people. And then when I finally did and let you guys in that much, the thought of losing you because of something that I'm setting, you know what I mean? Like it's too much for me.
Cry. Are you gonna cry thinking about it? Don't cry.
It's too much.
Cut it out. Okay, I get it. I'm gonna give you a break. I don't know why sometimes I feel like the talk show host and the therapist and then the bratty ass little that I just like to poke at people. I don't know why I have this persona on this podcast. I'm not like this in real life. So the hell, Mr. Bush. So, it just so happens that you recently had to set a healthy boundary for yourself. And then this podcast just came out of nowhere. It's crazy how
came out of
crazy
nowhere.
how that works. Yeah.
Crazy how that works.
Crazy
But
how that works.
I know for me how hard it is to set boundaries. But now that you have gone through it, looking at the before, looking at the during setting your boundaries, the immediately after, and the current. How are you feeling about the process? And is it something that you feel like you can continue to do?
I feel better today about the process than I did the day I did it. Um, like I went through the emotional gambit of setting that hard boundary. Um, I was mad. I was angry. I felt sick. I I felt like crap for like 2 hours, and then I drank a glass of wine. After that, I was Gucci. But at first, it was rough. It was because it was something uh, that's new to me. It's one of those things where we had talked where, I think the last time I was on the podcast, I'd been a people pleaser for so long. And so now putting myself first, it's different. It's a different feeling and it almost feels wrong. Like, how dare I put myself ahead of somebody else? How dare I put my wants, needs, emotions, passions, feelings ahead of anybody else's? And it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it.
Mhm.
Because when you put that into action and you literally like planting a flag on the moon, I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. It's like it's a breathtaking experience and you're going through all of it. And I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like the muscle. You got to do it constantly to be better at it. And I will say it's for me, it's easier to set those boundaries now for somebody who may be newer in my life or who maybe comes in off of, maybe I would say probably within the last couple months or so. I would say, just to give a space of time, uh, even up to a year. If they're new in my life, it's easier to set those boundaries versus somebody that you have known for an extended amount of time, who knows your mannerisms, who knows
Right.
how you move, how you operate, and then trying to set those boundaries after
Right.
you've already given them so much leeway and given them so much you've given them so many passes to do whatever they want or treat you trained them to treat you however you thought that you wanted to be treated. And now it's not only you retraining yourself, you now have to retrain that individual how to respond to you or how to treat you. That individual who I set that boundary for hasn't talked to me all week because that's a new boundary for them, and I firmly believe they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to talk to me right now,
Yep.
And they don't need to talk to you right now.
I will not disagree with that statement or that sentiment, but it's like I said, it's new for them, so I really don't believe they know how to adjust to the new. And it's not even a
Yeah.
rigid boundary. It was just me saying, hey, I'm not going to discuss this topic of conversation with you because frankly it's not your business. It's not
Yep.
your space to know what's going on with me in that area
That
of
is
my life.
that's a boundary.
But it's not what even what I would call, like, it's a boundary, but it's not like a rigid boundary where it's like, you know it's a healthy one versus a
it's
rigid
both.
boundary.
It's both.
I don't really see it as a rigid boundary because with a rigid boundary, there's a level of you don't trust that person. You don't,
We don't.
you
So but we don't. because the reason why I say it is because I know the person, obviously, that you're talking about. And the manipulation and narcissistic aspect of certain people come into my factor when I say this. And I don't trust the motives or the intentions. And that's why I also say it's a very rigid boundary, because I don't trust her with that information. I feel as though she has malicious intent behind gathering information, whether it be making you feel bad or something more. So that's why I say it's a mixture of both. I feel like certain people handle boundaries differently, and you can tell toxic people, you can tell manipulative people and narcissistic people from the person who just didn't know but respects you. And you can tell how they react to the boundary setting. Some people are just like, oh, wow, ouch, okay, a little sting. I get it. I'm sorry. Didn't mean it. And then there's the other people who are like, the fuck you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking about? I didn't do that.
Yeah.
You're crazy. You're overreacting. This is ridiculous. Like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me, 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 me. So that's why I'm saying, for this particular situation, I see it as a 50-50 split.
I don't see it that way, and we can agree to disagree on that. And it's just
I'm still
because
gonna have this opinion.
it's just.
I think you both are just thinking of it slightly differently. I think you're both kind of on the same page, but just thinking about it. The word rigid is.
We do that all the time.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do that all the time.
But for me, that's the reason why I see it as more of a healthy boundary versus even if it comes.
It's definitely a healthy boundary, 100%.
It definitely is. I'm not saying it's not.
I mean, even if like there is a rigid element to it, I still see it as more.
I think it's rigid in the sense of like if that topic's brought up, it's shut down. I think that's right. What she means by rigid. You know what I mean? That too. Oh, that too. Do you mean something else? Sorry, I didn't mean to put words in.
All of it. All of it. I mean, all of it.
I can't stand you sometimes.
Okay, so I know. I'm sorry, and it also comes into my protectiveness over the people I love and care about. And everybody knows that's my best friend, ride or die. I will fight for mine, and there have been a lot of things that I just haven't spoke on when it comes to that situation, because that's his situation, and I give my advice, and I definitely do speak my shit to him. But there are certain things where I just listen, and I don't just let it all out, because
depends on the day. Because
if we did, if we did, I'd be hitting her up. Okay, I'd be on the Facebook. I know the page, and I haven't. But sweetheart, if you're watching this, because you see him in here, you could come and talk to me. I'm always open and available 24/7. That's how I feel. So
I can't. Ridiculous.
Just saying. Just saying.
I think that sometimes when people,
I just want healing.
Yeah. Sometimes when people get boundaries, when they're told someone else's boundaries and they've already crossed it, I know for me, I go a little bit in on myself, and analyze everything.
Because you feel bad,
right? So and I take time. So maybe it's that. Maybe she just needs some time.
No, it's not that.
I mean, I know
for
her,
me,
so.
I know for me, like if somebody were to, because I've had people come to me and be like, hey, that's kind of a hard boundary for me. I'm the same way. I kind of overanalyze everything going forward. Yeah.
Go through every single conversation. Have I done this before? Like,
right.
Way crazy.
For me, it's definitely a matter of, for a while, until you kind of get used to moving around that person, especially if it's a new person.
Yeah.
Because I know there are some people who are, who you meet and, they have no problem telling you, hey, this is a boundary. I kind of find myself almost walking on eggshells around that individual, just because you don't want to cross that line
Right.
again. You want to be you want to be ever so mindful of
I
how
don't
you're
like
making that person feel.
that.
I mean, it's one of those things where, if, like I said, if it's a new individual, you don't know that person well enough to know that you can be, or you can say certain things that won't trigger them, because you don't know words. You don't know what that trigger might be for them,
Mm-hmm.
and what road
I
that
get
may
that.
lead them down. So it's like, I have a couple of friends of mine who have, some, what I would call post traumatic stress. And I flat out asked them, I'm like, so, what are the triggers for you? What are things that I can do that, or that I can avoid doing to you or saying to you that could possibly trigger you? Or if there's an area in which I have triggered you, or I accidentally make that step,
Yeah.
what can I do to kind of reel it back
Okay.
in, or get us to a point where we're good? Um,
Because at first, when you were saying walking on eggshells, I'm like, no, I don't like it. Having that conversation and then walking around those situations to make sure you're not doing it by accident, I get that. But at
Yeah.
first, I thought you meant just walking on eggshells in general. And I'm like, fuck no. I'm me. I'm going to do and say what I say. But please, if I cross boundary, let me know. And I cross boundaries all the time with my close friends. So, I mean, you know.
but I think that's a thing where I would
It's
consider
out
that
of
like
love, so
boundary
I don't
credit.
feel like boundary credit.
That's what I feel like it is. Like with you, I would say with you, probably like few of my other friends, where you could say something and it might like sting or be hurtful for a little bit, but you know that they might it just been jokes. And we come from the era where you run dozens. You can talk about somebody mama, you can talk about they dead dog or some stuff like that. And even to this day, you can mention Hercules to me, it sting a little bit, but that was my dog. But you could say a joke about him, and it'll bug me at first, but then it's one of those things where you kind of move past it, depending on who it's coming from, because you give them that line. It's seriously, it's like a line of credit. It's like, okay, you can say that because you've known me X amount of years, you've known me a little bit of time, to where I know it's a joke, or it's not coming from an inherently malicious place, but it still might sting a little bit. Like, but you're not gonna address it as if it were somebody who just completely hurt your feelings about it.
So let me ask y'all this, because I feel like I be, putting my whole weight into some boundaries sometimes, just because I'm bratty and like I'm very sassy. Not all the time, guys. Don't look at me like I'm like this is bratty sassy bitch. I'm not. That just have moments, okay? Shut the fuck up. I mean, terms speaking.
Only like 99.99% of the time.
So, like, I know I say I be pushing boundaries of my best friends a lot, but like, I also say it jokingly. But on a serious note, do I cross a lot of boundaries with you guys, like in general, or do you feel like I'm genuinely understanding and I don't, at least purposely, like constantly do it?
I don't think
And
you
I ask her, why'd
purposely.
I ask that question? I don't want to fucking know, because then I'm gonna feel bad. Perfect. Please
Retreat!
go back, because y'all are putting
Rewind!
some thought into this shit.
I will say, I will say
Oh
this:
God.
you have there are times when you cross the boundary when you feel it necessary. You have There are certain things where, like, I may have been protected over, or I may have put myself in an eggshell around, and you just decide to Kool-Aid man that shit, and you just like, no, Dameron, this is what you need to do. You need to quit doing X, Y, and Z. You need to start doing, LMNOP, and you need to do it yesterday. And I'm like, okay. I'm over here clutching pearls and whatnot. And sometimes I don't want to say that's not even necessarily you crossing a boundary. I believe that's sometimes where we all
Not a
need that
barrier.
healthy push.
I feel like that's just breaking down a barrier, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's crossing boundaries. I mean, you definitely push sometimes, but it's always from a place of love. And because you see that it's something that we need.
Right. I know I can speak for Steph and myself. We get in that mode where we just kind of like we get in that eggshell, and it's like you come through and you're like, time to make omelets, and you just
Damn, can bitches open. Whew. Do I leave them like sunny side up, or I just whisk
no,
y'all
you
up right quick?
Scramble the shit
the
out of
hell
it,
out
yeah.
of
Ew.
Sometimes
That's
you put a little
crazy.
cheese on it,
Well,
little.
y'all are welcome. Taco cheese. Y'all are welcome. I know. I was very curious because I know that I can be, not that I am. I can be bratty sometimes. And like if someone says something to me, I'm like, just because you said it, I'm just mm,
I need to know why you
take
keep
that.
throwing sometimes in there. Like
I
we
know,
don't know
seriously.
you.
I
Like,
have a reputation to uphold in these streets. I am a
yeah, and
sweetheart.
everybody
I'm
knows
so
you're a brat.
loving.
Like, seriously, like, who you lying to? Don't lie to the internet. The internet knows all and sees all. Like, who you lying to for real? Like, me and Steph know you. Like,
I'm not a bratty kitten 100% of the time.
no, we will. I will
None of us
agree
are
that it's
anything
not
100% of the time.
exactly. Why are you putting a stipulation on it? Just be honest. Like, it ain't gotta be hundred
It's
percent.
definitely a part of your
I
personality,
don't
though.
I don't want to be labeled or identified as just one thing. I am fluent and flowing. Thank you very much. Hmm. So I say sometimes
So,
I'm a
Nellie, do
bratty.
you have a hard time setting boundaries?
I do. But honestly, I mean, for me, it's vulnerability, and it's communicating my needs. Um, because we all know I was in a 14-year relationship. Um, that my needs emotionally were not met. Very seldom. It was rare and few and far in between where my emotional needs were met. And when I would communicate those needs or fears or what upset me, and we're talking about like even if I was broken down to the point where my legs gave out underneath me and I was crying, literally, um, my needs were not addressed or cared for. So I got to a point where it just wasn't worth talking about. And the reaction that I got taught me to just leave it alone, whatever, keep moving. Um, so it's a very vulnerable moment to be at that state, to be like, hey, I need this.
Yeah.
I have a very hard time being vulnerable. And for me, setting a boundary is being vulnerable. Um, for new people, it's much easier, like friends. Um, but there are some people who come in and I'm just like, I don't know why it's so difficult to have this conversation with you right now. Literally, it's what my brain.
See, I don't have a problem with
um,
new people at all. Like, I can easily set it and it doesn't affect me.
but see, that's the thing, and I mean, maybe I take y'all for granted. When I look at you, I don't look at you as leaving. Um, Fucking try it if you want to, but I I'm like y'all are for lifers, like Damon tried to get rid of me. It didn't work out well for him. Like
Didn't take.
here I
Like
am.
four
Hi.
times. Like four times
Yeah,
I left.
yeah, he tried literally. Like, literally tried. He tried not to talk to me. He tried not to be my friend. And that just, look at how that turned out for him. Here I go. But I don't, yeah, there are certain people who I'm just like, whatever it is, we'll talk about it, we'll handle it, we'll deal with it, we'll yell, we'll cry. We can take a little time apart, but you're a for lifer. You ain't going nowhere. And it's because I truly feel like you guys know my heart, you know my soul, and where I come from. A place like, yeah, I can be sarcastic and joke around, and sometimes I say things that are harsh, but I'm seeing it from a different view, and we just got to come together and have that conversation of a, hey, no, this means something different to me. um and then, yeah, I'll cry and feel bad because my guilt, and then I'll say some sarcastic shit and we'll move on.
Sounds
So
about right.
I don't have that fear with my long-term people, because I mean, y'all are stuck with me. I'm clinging on to legs. Try to kick me off. I'm a big bitch. You ain't getting rid of me.
Well, I think the thing that we keep circling around back to is communication. And
Yeah.
I feel like there are certain things where it's easier to communicate with somebody who knows you or you've built that repertoire with over, I'm gonna use some big words, repertoire.
Gonna need to get a
Built
dictionary
that with
out.
that you built that with that friendship or that long standing just bond with. And
Yeah.
so even if you just come into the realization of, hey, this is a trigger for me, or hey, this is something that I don't like, can we not address that, or can we not talk about that, or can we not don't do that anymore?
Yeah.
Not and not even in so much of a sense of where you're slapping their hand, but it's like, hey, can I talk to you about something real quick? And
Oh, I hate that. I
I
hate
feel like
that.
I
Can
feel
we
like
talk
it's
about this? Can we talk? We need to talk. That just,
I mean, I feel like that's more,
give me
and
anxieties.
yeah, it does. Depending on who it is, though. Like I said, there's certain friends of mine who I know that I could easily just walk up to and be like, this was I didn't like that,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't even be that formal of something that we need to address. It would just be like that rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like what you said. I don't like what you did, and maybe we need to discuss it. All right.
Oh. Ooh, good. Give me your babies. My babies don't do me nothing wrong.
But yeah, I think, like I said, the biggest thing that we keep hitting on is being able to have those open lines of communication to even set those boundaries or reset those boundaries. Uh, because I don't feel like they're as not even rigid. They're as hard set as it comes off because that word boundary just seems like so restrictive. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like I feel like there's those boundaries are can always be moved um to even a newer situation or a new thing that you may have gone
Common ground.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I agree with that. I think that when we were raised, and I don't know if it's for everyone in our age bracket, but
Probably a
we
good chunk
weren't
of us.
right. We weren't raised with the boundaries of today. We weren't raised with being able to have your own boundaries. We were raised with, these are your parental things, do's and don'ts, and fuck what you feel or what you want or what you say, and just here, go out into the world. Um, we were given, me and Steph, very unhealthy, can't speak now, very unhealthy boundaries when it came to relationships, and having to unlearn all of the wrong boundary settings and finding out what our true boundaries are, it can be difficult.
It's been a
And I
process.
think that that's, yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that. And it's so much easier to just be like, oh, fuck it, because I don't want to waste the energy. I don't want to waste the time, whatever. Um, I know for me, I've done a complete shift. I went from one end of the spectrum, which was like very far to the edge, to the other end. And I need to have a healthy medium because, I used to flip out and get pissed off and not give a fuck about what I said to anybody and, spaz out on them and protected myself to where now I'm just over here like, that's too much energy for me. I don't even got the time to address it. I'm gonna just let it be. It is what it is. Heal myself, call it a day. Um, but there are some things where I should react like that, and other things where I need to be like, nope, nope. And a few people have said that to me
You got to find the
recently,
right
and
balance.
I don't appreciate being called out on it, but I agree. Um, and doing my Reiki certifications, one of the tasks that we had to do shed light on the fact that I have serious issues with being vulnerable. And I didn't even realize how serious those issues were. And a bitch is struggling. And again, boundary setting is being vulnerable. So, ha, um, I'm gonna get better. I'm a work in progress. I am under construction. New management coming soon.
I think the funny
But
thing about
honestly,
oh,
go ahead.
I think the funny thing about what you said is like the way we were raised about how the boundaries were. Um, we had very what I would consider rigid boundaries, especially when it came down to the role of parent to child, and you're gonna respect what I say, you're gonna do what I tell you, you
Because
know,
I said so.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I said so. And the funny thing
I
about
hate
that
that.
now, and I was just on the phone with moms right before we started this, and it was we had a
We
whole
know.
conversation, and the
Huh?
conversation the conversation had led to her. She said something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and as a kid, you're told to eat that. Parents, they're parents.
Right.
They can say whatever they want to you.
Mm-hmm.
They can, and you gotta eat that. And I'm just like, oh, I don't believe that. And so I kind of told moms, I'm like, yo, I don't G with what you just said. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I feel this type of way, this certain way about what you said, and I said, and she goes, well, I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about in general. I said, you can't do that. I said, the generalization means that you're covering everybody in that spectrum. I said, and that includes me. You can't say that everybody is like this except for my son. He's different from everybody else. You can't say that. Is like she's like, oh, well, I didn't think about it like that. I was like, yeah, when you generalize and you say stuff like that, I said, you include me into that, even if you say you don't include me into that. I said, because it makes me feel a certain type of way when you say that. And she kind of had to take a step back and she's like, I can respect what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And it wasn't a matter of, well, I'm your mom. How dare you speak against me? It was, you have the space or you're given that space to say or set that boundary to say, hey, this is this is what you said has made me feel. And I think that's a dope transition
That
because
is. That's fantastic.
my mom was hard. She was a
Still
hard lady
is.
growing up. Like, yeah, she still has her moments, but there's 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 little things where it's like, I
But she
couldn't say
sees
that
you
as a kid.
differently, though. Right. She sees you differently now, though.
I mean, true, but still, even then,
But you guys have a really good, um, as much as mothers annoy their children, you guys still have a good, healthy relationship to where you felt comfortable enough saying it to her and she was receptive of it. So it definitely says a lot for your relationship and how it's grown.
It does. It does. I will give you
Can
that.
never do that with my mother.
No, I tried setting boundaries with my mother. It did not work out well. We don't talk
I'm not
now.
sure what to say about that.
Yep.
I know about your mom.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
No, I know. You've
I'm
been
just
around
gonna
long
give
enough.
y'all. Just gonna give y'all virtual hugs because bless y'all. Bless y'all. Bless
That's a
y'all.
whole nother podcast. I wonder if she come
That
on this podcast one day and talk to us.
Oh my god. My heart just like dropped to my feet.
don't do that. We gotta finish this podcast. You can't
God.
be killing Stephanie.
Ooh.
I'm getting a hot flash.
Steph, you're right.
Whoo.
Take it back, Nelly. Take it back.
She's not talking to either of us. Like, I haven't talked to her in almost 2 years now, and Steph has been like 6, maybe more. So, like,
Take it back.
she's
Take
not
we
coming.
take it back, Steph. It's not
Steph?
happening.
Look at the avocado.
Ah.
That was boundary I crossed.
Yeah.
You giants waffle slap that motherfucker.
My bad. So yeah. I think that there are some people I know who it's very easy for them to set boundaries, and I admire it. Honestly, I hope that I can get close to that. I'll never be like some of them because some of them it's quite scary. But it just, it goes to attest to about how you grow up, and I feel like your trauma responses directly affect your boundary setting because
Absolutely.
It's something new. You're not used to standing up for yourself. You're not used to setting these healthy boundaries.
If it's someone who's had trauma, I guarantee you they didn't have any boundaries. They were never taught how to set any boundaries or that they were allowed to have any in the first place. So
it's very difficult. But there are some people who are just like, that's it. You like it. You don't like it. The fuck out. And I'm like, damn.
I want to be that.
Wow. Can I just have just a little bit, a little slice? I just want a little piece of the pie. I don't need a big slice like my sweet potato pie on Thanksgiving, but like a little sliver. Damn.
I think it's just like I said. It's kind of one of those things where it just becomes a muscle. You got to exercise it, and you got to fully commit to being able to set those boundaries.
The more you do it, the easier it gets.
Right, because
that's true.
If you just, I know after my first time doing it, like it literally made me nauseous. Like I could have easily pulled to the side and threw up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was something I'd never done before, or even I'm not even sure I can say haven't done, but it's something that I hadn't done in such a long time that it was almost foreign to me. It's like my brain was saying, like, dude, what are you doing? We don't do this. This is new. What are you doing? No, stop it. It's like everything in you is telling you to stop doing it. Like your nerves are on fire. Like everything is just like cranked to the max, and it literally made me physically sick. And I had to call Nelly, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, what's going on? And she's on the phone with me. Sky's in the background, and I'm sitting there and I'm going through like this gambit of emotions, and it's just like, and I'm telling her like the only thing I can say is like, this is stupid. Like, this is stupid. Why am I going through this? This doesn't make sense. All I did was X, Y, and Z, and all I said was this. Why am I feeling this way? And it was like literally like I was nauseous. Then I went to being angry. Then I went to being sad, and it was like why? And like I was talking to Nelly about it, and then like I had discussed this, like my friends, like I kind of touched base with my inner circle because I think I couldn't get in touch with Nelly at first, and so like I hit my circle and I'm like, "What's going on here?" And they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." And so everybody's like, everybody's like, "Yeah, this is normal. This is how it happens. This is just."
You went into like a full blown body and panic attack at the same time. So it's like your adrenaline went rushing, and then you felt the coming off of the adrenaline and getting nauseous. And when we get anxious, our bodies react. It physically makes you sick. You can have heart palpitations, sweat, get dizzy, blurry vision, start seeing little silver sparkles. I don't know if you guys have ever had that happen. It's trippy as hell. But nauseous. You can even get the shits, people. Like, there it goes.
Facts.
Your body reacts so crazy. It throws everything out of whack. And that's why, when we talked about mental health, anxiety and depression affects your overall body. It affects your ability to get up. It affects motor functions and different things. And that's real. So that's why when you were like, I'm feeling really nauseous, it's like you're in panic. He's like, it's not what, but he's screaming at me.
I didn't even realize I was screaming.
And I was
Like
like, oh,
seriously, I didn't
that's
even realize
why.
I was screaming. Like
He's like,
I didn't
this
realize
guy
how
goes,
loud I was.
yeah, this guy goes, Uncle Dameron, don't cry. And I was like, he can't hear you, baby. And he's just over there. Like, it's okay. It's all right. And then I had to give him his moment to collect himself, to calm once he calmed down enough, because then you need to sit with it. You need to really, realize, and it's all normal. It's a normal reaction. Your trauma brain is like, hell no, this is crazy. Why are you doing that? We were protecting ourselves here, and now you're putting us in danger. Like, that's literally how your brain reacts to changing
That's a, that's
something.
exactly how it felt. It was just literally like my nerves. It felt like my nerves were on fire, and not to like the extent of like because it's different like when I get angry because it wasn't like the anger that I'm used to feeling
Bless
like.
your face.
Thank you.
Hmm?
I said, bless your face. She sneezed.
Oh.
Was the anger you're used to feeling? Yes.
Yeah,
Continue.
because usually when I get angry about a situation, like I feel it in my forearms. That's my center of anger is I feel it here.
Luke Cage.
And and it wasn't even necessarily there. It was just like this whole like
Overbody.
body rush type thing, and it was just like and like I said, it just transitioned from like one emotion to the next, and then it was like, okay, gotta calm down, and I got off the phone with you, and I kind of sat there for a moment, and I just kind of I started breathing, and then it was like afterwards I was like stupid hungry, and I went and made I finally made my steak. I felt better about that, and had me a glass. Not had me a glass. I about said I had the whole bottle. I didn't have a bottle. I had a glass of wine while I was cooking, and I just kind of like I settled, and I was centered after that. But it
Um,
was wild.
oh, it's trippy. It's crazy. And that's why a lot of people, when they start the process and they're halfway through and the other person's reacting the way they're reacting and you're feeling the way you're feeling, you're just like, you know what? Forget it. Forget it. And you retreat and don't set the boundary and don't follow through with it. And then the cycle continues. Because sometimes it's just so much easier to be like, no, I don't want to do this. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not the next day. But the one thing that I've had to come to realize, and we all know clearly, I still be struggling, but um, the people who truly care about you and care about your well-being, your emotional health, and love you, um, will understand, and they're not going to get mad, and they're not going to get offended. They're not going to take it personal. It might sting them a little bit. They might feel bad, and that's normal, because as a caring human being, that's a normal reaction. If you bothered someone, even though it was unknowingly, unwillingly, you bothered someone and that bothers you. I know for me, I'm like, oh my God, I hurt you. Oh my God, let me cuddle you. So it's like, I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry. But like, that's a normal reaction, for somebody to feel that sting and feel that burn and maybe have to retreat for a second and take a moment to regroup themselves. But the people who truly care about you are not going to leave because you set a boundary for yourself. And that's something we all have to understand and realize. And by setting boundaries, you weed out the bitches that don't give a fuck about you. The bitches that ain't here for your best interests, that are here for something else. Weed their asses out. And then maybe they'll figure it out, try to come back, and you decide if you want to let them back in because they might need a lesson that they need to learn. But we can't concern ourselves with how someone else is going to take it at this point. It's time to set boundaries for ourselves. I'm speaking to you, Nelly. And do it for yourself. Fuck everybody else. So, so I think we can all agree, and majority of people, bless your hearts for the ones that are like, I set boundaries, I don't give a fuck. Bless your hearts. It ain't that easy for most of the world, okay? Anyway,
I think
I
the
think we
last
can
thing,
agree. Go
I
ahead.
think I think the last thing that we have to discuss about the whole boundary setting is making sure that we do proper upkeep of those boundaries. And when those boundaries are violated, that we remove ourselves from that individual or
Mm,
persons, places, things that are not willing to respect those boundaries. I think that
I
was
agree
one of
with
the
that.
things that was one of the things that my therapist hit like right on the head. It's like when that boundary is crossed, and even after you've already said it, that is a complete and utter violation, and
Absolutely.
you are
Question.
have to be fully prepared to leave that situation if that boundary is going to be crossed.
Avocado, a question for you. Um, so we're waiting the whole show to say that question. Great. Anyway, um, do we take into account that it's also, obviously depending on what it is and depending on the delivery and the intent of the person. It's also hard for other people to learn a boundary, especially if it's not one that has been set and they've been dealing with us for such a long time, for them to maybe cross over a little bit. And do you take that as a learning moment and say, hey, remember I said this? And then obviously, if they continue, that's a different story. But like, for me, it seems very cutthroat because I know, like, I can be forgetful. We all know I had that brain injury. So sometimes, like, I legit am forgetful of some things. And I'm like, I don't remember you saying this to me. And then, like, I feel horrible. You know what I mean? But, like, do do you take that into account, or is it just a hard, I said it once, you cross it, done deal?
I think when it comes from at least for me, I don't really want to generalize people like that, but I think for me, like if you generally know that person and you know that they're not
Yeah.
malicious in intent, and it's just a matter of, oh, my bad, I forgot that we had that conversation, or my bad,
I didn't
I
mean
won't
it.
do that again. Sometimes if it's new for that person or if it's new
Yeah.
for whoever that individual is, it may be something that they've done to a million other people or said to a million other people and just, have gotten a positive feedback, positive reaction. And you just may be the one person out of a million who may find offense or may find that that's something that you don't agree with.
Mm.
So it may be something different for them to kind of adjust to. And that's kind of where I was getting at when I said you kind of got to walk on eggshells when that boundary is set. You know, it's just a matter of them not knowing or them adjusting how they move to something that may have affected you. So
Mhm.
I generally like to give a three strikes rule, you
Yeah,
know.
I was gonna say that. That was yeah.
Yeah.
That's the same for me. Like, it depends on what it is, of course. Like, if it's something really big, then obviously it's a one and done. Like, if it's something big. But for the most part, I mean, we're all learning. We're all forgetful. I know I forget shit all the time. Like,
we know.
It happens. So, but as long as the person...
I can't be serious all the time. I'm sorry.
As long as the person is, like, honestly respectful about it and apologizes and tries to make the steps to not do it again, then they can get some grace. But, yeah, no more than 3 strikes. Once you hit that, if you're continuing to do it that many times, that's something bigger there.
Fuck about me.
Exactly.
Say it with your chest, Steph. Say it.
You don't give a fuck about me.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So we all can agree, setting boundaries is hard. It sucks. It's bullshit, as some of us like to say. It's trash, but it's necessary. And it's so important. And it has to be done. So find you some friends that are good at setting boundaries. And be like, help me. Show me your ways. But honestly, just put yourself first. I think that's, where it comes from. And for me, like I said, it's a vulnerability issue, which stems with communication. So those are things I need to work on, and making myself vulnerable so that I can set those boundaries. So work on you, understand why you have a hard time doing what you do, why you have a hard time asserting yourself and setting your boundaries, and then work on that. Start off with a small boundary, but yeah, we gotta do it. We gotta do better at protecting our peace.
Mm-hmm.
So once you set the boundary, setting the boundary is the hardest part. Once you set it, keep it there. Maintain it. Don't let that bitch come down. Keep, little cracks gonna come in your boundary wall. Just spackle that bitch. Throw some new paint on her. Just let her stay up. Don't think because she got a little crack or someone's trying to creep over the top. Keep building. Knock that bitch off your boundary wall. Don't just be like, oh, you breached it. It's okay. Come on over. Let me hug you. No. Knock that bitch out. Set them back down on the other side. Do you like my visual? How these things I'm picturing knocking this person off the top of my boundary wall. Anyway. Welcome to my mind, guys. But yeah. It sucks. It's hard. But you gotta do it. And I think it's also very healthy if you're going into a new relationship, whether it be with someone romantically or a friendship, and just saying like, yo, what are your boundaries? What are your hard no's? We're so equipped to not, just sit back and be like, all right, cool, it's whatever. And we don't ask these hard questions, and then we get the hard lessons. I rather start asking the hard questions up front, and that's getting to know someone as well, and getting to know who they are as a person. You're not going to jive with everyone. You're not going to vibe. You're not going to flow with everybody. It's better to know that now than find out later on down the road with the hard ass lesson smack in the face, and it won't be with a cute little avocado. You don't like my avocado?
No, it's adorable.
It's so cute, isn't it? It's so cute. So cute. So anyway, guys, that's all I got to say. Anyone else want to add anything?
I believe your outro was a good one.
Great. I'm pretty amazing sometimes. Well, anyway. Keep working on those boundaries. Protect your peace. Until next time, love yourself first. Love yourself enough to set boundaries, healthy boundaries. And just remember, it's all a bunch of BS. Bye.
Bye.
Do the chin wave. Thank you. He be sitting there acting like he can't. Luke Cage looking ass. Look at me like that.
What you gonna do about it?
Steph, don't he look like Luke Cage? Just picture him with a bullet-ridden sweatshirt.
I actually have one on the hoodie over on the couch over there because I dressed up as Luke Cage for Halloween like 4 or 5 years ago.
Nice.
I literally have him in my phone on Snapchat as Luke Cage.
Disrespectful.
I know. That is true.